Onto a disturbing trend that different groups of Americans view from very different standpoints. I'm talking about police brutality in the United States. Officers here are heavily armed and in many cases trained to be bullies. They're often given paid administrative leave during cases in which they have used violence against helpless, unarmed people, almost always using self-defense as an excuse. And what about this recent event in Monterey, California? SWAT police there used, quote, non-lethal force, burning a house and the man inside to the ground. Turns out he was the wrong man, and they, the police, were at the wrong house. SWAT teams raiding your home using what some would consider excessive force to terrorize you and your loved ones. All this because they hear you may be guilty of a crime. Well, this is the real-life story of many U.S. citizens. Take a look.
Did you shoot my dog? You shot my dog!
What you just heard, one man in Missouri's reaction as a SWAT team slaughters his dog and searches his home. The reason for their hunt? They think he has a lot of marijuana that he's intending to sell. But in fact, they only find a small amount, not enough for any serious charges. And this is not an isolated incident. Numerous raids just like this one take place every day all over the country. Officers, dressed more like soldiers, violently bust into people's homes, leaving innocent victims, in this case the family pet, dead in their paths. And we're joined now by one person who this actually happened to, Shy Calvo, who also happens to be the mayor of Berwyn Heights, Maryland. Mr. Calvo, I want to start and just first have you tell me the story of what happened back in July of 2008.
Sure, Christine. It was, for the first 17 hours, a normal day. I got home from work to walk my dogs before a community meeting I had to get to that night. When I came home with the dogs, let them off their leads, and found a white box on my front porch that it was addressed to my wife, didn't think much of it. So I brought it in, left it unopened on a table, and went upstairs to change back into business attire. I'd gotten down to my boxer shorts when I heard my mother-in-law, who lived with us then and was cooking dinner, scream out to me, just a fearful sound. It made no sense, something about SWAT. So I ran over to a window to look out, and sure enough, I saw these men dressed in black with high-caliber rifles. I didn't have a chance to process that before I heard an explosion, the sound of our door being kicked open with a battering ram, followed by immediate gunfire. I, overwhelmed with fear, hit the ground, more gunfire, men in boots. They came upstairs, put me at gunpoint, dragged me down, bound me, had me kneel at gunpoint in my boxer shorts on our living room floor as they turned our house upside down. I mean, my mother-in-law, who was cooking dinner, was thrown on her face in front of the dinner she was preparing. My older black Labrador, Peyton, was in a far corner of the living room, lying in a pool of his own blood. It was a nightmare, a 4-hour ordeal, which they had delivered that box, which they said had marijuana in it, but they found nothing to connect us to it, and they turned our lives upside down over a botched raid, and they also shot our younger dog, Chase, who was running away from them, actually shot him from behind, and it was just a terrible, terrible, terrible day.
A little girl came to our house after this happened the next day, and she said to me, she said, if the police shot your dogs dead and did this to you, how can I trust them?
How about that footage, folks, there? Mr. Che Calvo, we've been bringing it to you, you know. We're living one nation under surveillance, the police state of America. My goodness, the things that are going on and the things that the drug war has allowed, I'm telling you people, we are indifferent in this country, and that's a big problem. We're ignorant. My God, and the hypocrisy, it's all going on in this country. People, come on now. You are with the Department of Freedom. I am sitting way out here. You are watching Stop Getting Started Revolution with my brother, Mr. Buz. Come on now, people. You know you're with the Institute for Higher Learning. That's right. We encourage you to expand your worldview, to educate yourself and those around you, so you don't have to tolerate and those college tricksters out there that you don't tolerate from your friends and your family. My goodness. Now, folks, if you were with us last week, we put a wrap on the show, and I was talking about, you know, my fantastic trip across the country this past summer and what happened to me in my favorite state, South Dakota, out there. Well, I tell you, I got to think twice if I'm ever going to go back out there. Why? Because now they got a warrant for my arrest. My goodness. Well, we're going to get into why, folks. But the reason we're sitting in these prison uniforms, I'm telling you, people, is why? Because my trip just brought me to a place. And I tell you, I ended up in a room with a bunch of felons, and what I learned out there, and it's what I told the governor out there and all these legislators and all these other people who letters I wrote to once I had this scenario I'm going to unfold on you. I said, what I learned in your beautiful state, if you go on vacation, you're going to come out on probation, and if you go for a stroll, you're going to come out on parole. Buzzy. Woo-wee. Come on now, people, you know. We've been showing you throughout this season that the CIA is the cocaine heroin import agency, and we've been asking the question, you know, are cops your friend? Can they be? They got their own agenda, and that's the way it is, you see. Now, Buzz, you know, what are some of your thoughts about what we've been covering? The CIA, Maine, Arkansas, Bill Clinton went on with his administration, you know, while he was governor, and as he becomes president, well, the federal Murray building blows up, and all the research and investigative research that was going on in Maine, Arkansas, and all the cocaine that was coming in with Barry Seal, who got killed, you know, before he could testify as to what was going on. I don't know, folks, if you were here with the past couple of weeks, but we've been trying to say, you know, police state of America.
Guilty until proven innocent. Remember that. If they can confiscate your property right there on site, without proving anything, you're guilty. It's plain and simple. Just like what happened to you. I mean, I don't know all the details of it yet. You're going to share it all with us now. But once again, just like with Mayor Calvo, am I pronouncing? Calvo. You know, they intercepted that box. They let it go through, and instead of investigating and watching it, they raided his house, shot his dog, put a gun to his mother-in-law's head. Is that the act of treating someone who you suspect to be innocent and looking for facts to prove his guilt? Or are you treating him as a guilty convict or criminal, right, and then waiting to find, oh, sorry, you were innocent? You know, that's the Marine mentality of shoot first and let God sort them out. Well, once you're dead, folks, and that's it. And there's no taking that back, no matter how much money they may try to compensate you for. I'm sure he's going to do something about that.
Buzz, I got to roll something at you. Now, let me tell me if this sounds familiar to you, and, you know, if you've ever heard this before. It says here, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, and papers, okay? And effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, all right? And no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the person or the things to be seized.
Well, what document is that from, man? I don't think I've ever heard of that whole concept ever being presented to by our law enforcement authorities. What is that?
You know, it just happens to be the Fourth Amendment, Buzz, you know?
Really? You mean to the Constitution of the United States with that principles in which those founding fathers put their lives on the line for, and many died to preserve through World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and a whole bunch of others?
Must be outdated or something.
Totally.
You know what I'm saying?
So I wonder what the people in Iraq are fighting and dying for and killing for now. What principles are they fighting for?
Democracy, Buzz. We've talked about that. We know what democracy is, right?
Yeah,
what is it?
It's a mockery by Satan in one respect.
Well, no, it's two wolves in a lamb deciding what's for dinner.
Great analogy.
Hey, we know what's going on here.
Mob rule mentality.
It's a flim-flam. It's a scam, folks. And so, yeah, we're sitting here. Why? Because we care enough to confront the issues. That's right, folks. You know, time's going on, and this country is going down the crap hole. So, you know, anyway, Buzz. Let me go back to my story where I was telling you what happened to me this past summer out in South Dakota. You know what I'm saying? Well, folks, I finished up a beautiful trip, checking out many beautiful places in our fine country. And, well, we're wrapping it up. I had to come home and go to a 3-day music festival down in Bridgeport. And I was like, woohoo, vacation after vacation. Got to get home now. So, you know, we're cruising along, about to leave South Dakota. And all about the Midwest, it's like 75 miles an hour to travel. You know? So as you get closer to exiting the state, well, 65. And they're sitting there and they're doing nothing but taxing the people, pulling them over, social profiling, and extorting a little bit more money out of the people before they leave after they try to, you know, have a good time and spend the money. Anyway, folks, what happened? I got pulled over by a cop, you know? And I don't have anything against cops. We are not anti-cop. We just
No, we're
saying,
not. There is a definite need for police.
what we're talking about is we need accountability, we need reform, you know, within the SWAT teams across this country, what's going on. People now, come on. And, you
Instead
know,
of them being alienated from the community, they need to be part of the community.
well, that's just it, you know. We want our law enforcement to recognize that they serve us, right? And instead, what's happening, they're serving the law. And the law of the land is not what they're serving. They're serving the bureaucratic agencies and all these laws that are being made year after year after year. And as the economy gets worse, you know, they're going to put the squeeze on the people because they got to get more money to keep the bureaucracy alive. Folks, well, you know, as I was tooling around, ready to leave the state, Buzz, and you know, I got to admit, I was speeding, and I saw that police cruiser there on the side of the road, and I felt my heart just go, oh, Jesus. Well, what happens? The cop pulls us over, and after he gives you my speeding ticket, I was really thinking, you know, he's going to let me go, and I was going to be on my way. He says to me, Buzz, you know, it's my responsibility to make sure that you don't have any illegal drugs. Well, he says, when I came over to your window, I smelled marijuana on your breath. And I immediately said to the officer, with respect, I said, officer, that's a lie. Because I hadn't been smoking, folks, you know. I'd concentrating on driving and getting home. Well, anyway, he says, I'm going to search your vehicle. And I said, you know, officer, it wasn't my vehicle to ask for permission. It was my girlfriend's. And I said, you know, you're going to do what you have to do. Well, he never did ask for permission from my girl. And he said he had to stand on the side of the highway. And God knows what I was doing in South Dakota. I was picking Amanita muscaria mushrooms. Oh, flesh of the God in the Black Hills, for God's sake. Had a whole box of them in the back of the car. He asked me if I had any drugs. And I knew he wasn't going to help me, so I had to lie. And I know a lie is a tool of the devil, but I was in the position where, hey, when law enforcement isn't there to help you out, what are you going to do? You know what I'm saying, people? And I hate to say it, but that's what I had to do. I tell him, no, I ain't got nothing. Well, thank God he didn't find those mushrooms, but anyway, he started ransacking my car like a little kid he was like a little kid at an Easter egg hunt going wild. Whoa, what am I going to find? Well, I'll tell you what he found. He found less than, you know, a couple joints. Hey, I was finishing up my trip. I already smoked my weed, you know. And the amount that he found, I consider that to be out when the amount he found. And he found a beautiful glass pipe, etc. So I got busted with, you know, under 2 ounces and possession of pot paraphernalia. And so he cuffed me and he stuffed me, sticks me in the car, you know, and he says, okay, he was kind enough to read me my Miranda rights. And I told him, well, I have nothing to say. And then he said to me, well, when we get you back to the police station, we're going to have you piss in a cup. And I said, well, what? I said, you know, excuse me. I said, you know, laws are made to protect property rights. I said, who's really breaking the law here? I mean, we read the 4th Amendment to you. Obviously, folks, you know, search and seizure. You know, he can say anything he wants. Cops will lie to you. And this is a fact. And he did make up a story. Oh, I smelled pot. Impossible. He saw a long-haired, 40-plus-year-old hippie, you know, with a way to extract some money for the system and get himself a patent a job. That's the way I see it. Extortion. All right, so anyway, he tells me this. He's like, when we get you back there, you know, we're going to have you piss in a cup. And I said, whoa, whoa. I said, that sounds a little bit to me. I said, here you are, supposed to be upholding the law, and what's going on here? You rifling through my stuff, you find a little bit of weed, and now you want my private property, you want my urine. I said, okay. I thought about it, didn't say nothing more, and we got back to the police station. You know, they took my clothes and put me in a costume like this for a couple joints here, you know? Wasting the taxpayers' money, undoubtedly. All right? Should have just, you know, gave me a fine or whatever and said, be on your way. And instead, you know, they put me through the meat processing factory there, and, you know, they treat you with no dignity, for God's sake. So they were interrogating me, asking me all about this, and that. And I said, you know, can I speak freely? And I got into it with them. I'm like, you know, you're supposed to be upholding the law. All right? I said, you're fighting a war on drugs. And you know what we always say on the program here. The war on drugs uses the ignorant in this society to make laws to bring in the New World Order. And I said, they're using you, man. Can't you see? I said, I got friends dying from cancer. Marijuana, cannabis, hemp is a cure for it. I said, please go home and watch the Ricky Simpson story. He said he would. I said, have you ever heard of law enforcement against prohibition? LEAP. I said, these people are officers who've been in the front lines, you know? And I said, 80% of the people they talk to, they convert. First time they talk to them. Drug policy needs reform, you know?